Around the nation, UIT Nation, Jeff Waldorf here with you. Welcome to the show. It's Friday, so a little bit casual. No, I've actually been having some problems with my background, so we're just not going to have a background today. But that's fine. So Friday, thank goodness, end of the week. Again, thank goodness. And we have a lot of stuff. This week is it's bad for Trump. So we've got more stuff on Ukraine, including some texts that completely obliterate Donald Trump's no quid pro quo defense. So that's good. Then we also have Mike Pence, or I like to say
Mike Pounds.
Mike Pounds. We've got him. He's also in the middle of this Ukraine thing, so we'll talk about that as well. Then we've got a right-wing group tries to troll Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez at a town hall. The absolute insanity going on in this town hall, and AOC's reaction to it. So I think both of those are really important. We'll talk about that. Very interesting story. Then we've got fundraising totals for Joe Biden compared to Bernie Sanders. Oh, that's really good. I think you'll enjoy that story. And so, we got those stories, and then we'll probably do an out maybe a little bit early, take some comments, questions, super chats, etc. And then I gotta go to fixing my background. So, all right. Before we do that, please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Very important that you do so. Helps out greatly. We've been actually having it's been like a really bad couple of months when it comes to views, revenue, etc. So I don't know what's going on here. So it's very, very important that you like and share. Anything that you come across, any videos of ours, video clips, really, really help out if you guys could share it. Helps us get out to more people, because you guys don't understand, like, the way that YouTube works. You're the gatekeeper, right? So if you watch, the video and you share and you like and all that, that makes it much more likely it's going to get out to other people, that it's going to end up on the recommended feed. If you don't, then it doesn't do any of that and never really goes anywhere. So again, super, super important that you share and like and all that. So, and especially that you watch. So anyway, that said, let's thank some patrons. Patreon.com/UITNation. All right. So I want to thank, let's go down here. This is still the $5 members who support us on Patreon. Thomas Dwyer, Trevor Reeves, Sim Vong, and Vaughn Jenkins. So thank you to those patrons. Patreon.com/UITNation. That's how you can support independent progressive media. All right. So I suppose we should get started with Donald Trump. I know, a lot of green today. My green screen lighting is messed up. So for those of you who are trying to wonder, like, I can just now imagine people photoshopping stuff behind me. Like, I know it's going to happen. That's fine. Well, you know what? I look forward to seeing the weird photoshops you put. I can just imagine like Godzilla behind me or something like that. Why not? Go crazy. You release anything green on the internet, and it's going to end up having some hilarious pictures, hilarious memes behind it. So we'll see what happens. Okay. Anyway, so let's start out with President Trump and the texts. Here we go. Now, President Trump and his administration have been caught using aid for Ukraine as a bargaining chip to pressure the country to investigate Donald Trump's political opponents. Now, you might say, wait a minute, they've already been caught. In fact, you had the not only the memo that the White House itself released, but also the whistleblower complaint. What else can come out? What other evidence can show that, yes, this was politically motivated? Well, we have receipts, we have text messages now. Oh. So now, House Democrats on Thursday released a bunch of text messages between top U.S. Diplomat provided to them by Special Envoy to Ukraine Kurt Volker. So these are State Department employees that have been doing these exchanging these text messages. So now the text showed that the Trump administration had attempted to use a possible meeting between Trump and Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky to pressure the Ukrainians into launching an investigation into Biden and his son, Hunter Biden. So let me tell you who's involved here. So you have Bill Taylor. Bill Taylor is the top U.S. diplomat in Ukraine. Then you had U.S. ambassador to the European Union, Gordon Sondland. You had Kurt Volker, who resigned last week. Rudy Giuliani, and Andrei Yermak, who is an advisor to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. So now, let me give you kind of a breakdown of these texts, when they happen, so you can kind of get a sense of what's really going on. Because there's a lot of information here, there's a lot of stuff that's come out. So now, the texts actually began July of this year. Now, Volker and Sondland had tried to set up a meeting, a phone call between Trump and Zelensky. So now they're trying to do that because, look, they work at the State Department, and I think maybe a lot of them believe that, hey, man, look, we just want to set up a good working relationship with the Ukrainians. And so Donald Trump wants a meeting with Ukraine, with Zelensky. That's fine. That's our job, right? We set it up. But there's a flag. Already, Trump wanted those two to set up a meeting by involving Rudy Giuliani. Giuliani, of course, being Donald Trump's personal lawyer, doesn't actually work for the government, doesn't actually work for the State Department. Donald Trump's personal lawyer, what is he doing trying to set up meetings with leaders of foreign countries? That's some weird stuff going on. But there's more. So now Volker had texted Giuliani on July 19th. Mr. Mayor, I really enjoyed breakfast this morning as they went and had meetings. As discussed, connecting you here with Andrei Yermak, who is very close to President Zelensky, one of his personal aides. The same day, Volker and Sondland had exchanged their own texts. Sondland said it looked like there would be a POTUS call tomorrow, and said he spoke directly to Zelensky and gave him a full briefing. He's got it. Volker mentions his breakfast with Giuliani, and Volker writes, most important is for Zelensky, and this is key. Most important is for Zelensky to say that he will help investigation and address any specific personnel issues. Already, right? So these texts clearly show that in order to get that meeting with Trump, this was on July 20th, right? 5 days before the call, Zelensky had to say that he will help with this investigation. Now, in the text, Joe Biden wasn't explicitly mentioned, but what was mentioned was Burisma. Burisma is the Ukrainian gas company that Hunter Biden was involved with. And Hunter Biden was getting paid $50,000 a month to what? I don't know. I don't know what he was doing. And so, yes, that appears to be a level of corruption. That is systemic corruption. That is this Ukrainian gas company putting Hunter Biden on the board simply because his last name was Biden. And so, yes, that is a significant issue as well. And so now the administration is trying to pressure the leader of Ukraine to do a corruption investigation into that. Which, by the way, there was already an investigation 2 years before into the so-called corruption of Burisma. And they found, of course, actually nothing illegal that Hunter Biden had done. Now, again, that doesn't cover the, systemic corruption, but systemic corruption by its nature is rarely illegal. So there's that, right? So now, 2 days later, Taylor, the top U.S. diplomat in Ukraine, had expressed some concerns, saying that he's heard that President Zelensky is sensitive about Ukraine being taken seriously, not merely as an instrument in Washington domestic re-election politics. So, look, Zelensky, he's in a pretty difficult position, right? So he wants to be relies on this aid to defend his country against Russia. Russia, of course, had already annexed Crimea at that point, and so Zelensky's like, "Look, I don't want Russia to come in and take more of our territory. So we're relying right now on both the EU as well as the United States for aid money to make sure that we can defend ourselves. So we rely on that." But at the same time, he's like, "Look, man, I, I don't want to be stuck in your political nonsense. I just want to make sure our concerns are being taken seriously. I got my country to look out for. I don't really care about your internal politics." And so they send that message, right? And so, like Taylor had mentioned, Zelensky is very sensitive to that, and he wants to be taken seriously, and of course, not be involved in this re-election campaign. Essentially, is what this is. Now, Sondland responds that it's important to, quote, get the conversation started and relationship built, irrespective of the pretext. So, don't care about that. Just get a relationship going already. And then, again, we don't care about the pretext too much, whether it's be, on the investigation or whatnot. Just do whatever you can to make sure that we have this relationship. And Sondland had responded, quote, I am worried about the alternative of not having a relationship, right? So now Volker and Sondland had appeared to have been trying to get Trump to give the new Ukrainian government a chance, right? Now, they heard, including from Giuliani, that what Trump wants the most is Zelensky's commitment to do a political investigation into Burisma, into CrowdStrike, and like I said, Hunter Biden, which is related to Burisma. So now here comes a July 25th text, which happened shortly before Donald Trump's phone call with Zelensky. Volker wrote, heard from the White House, assuming President Z convinced Trump that he will investigate / get to the bottom of what happened in 2016, we will nail down date for visit to Washington. So, of course, that what happened in 2016, Mueller investigation. If you discredit the Mueller investigation, which is what part of this is, and it's related to this insane thing that there's some sort of server sitting in Ukraine or that's involved with the Mueller investigation and the origins of the, or as Trump would say, oranges, of the investigation into President Trump and Russia. Insane conspiracy theory. There's no actual truth to it, but like I said, Donald Trump, I've said before, Donald Trump's an idiot. He believes in all these sorts of conspiracy theories. So the point of discrediting that investigation, which would be looking into this, into CrowdStrike, etc., would help Donald Trump politically. So that's why he's interested in this, right? So now, the aid to Ukraine wasn't explicitly mentioned, but there is still quid pro quo in that. Again, that the thing of value being discrediting that information that will help him, Donald Trump, politically. Now, Yermak understood this, right? And after the call, he texted Volker mentioning both dates for a Washington visit and asking dates that he can meet with Rudy Giuliani in Madrid. Now, the next text came on August 9th, where Trump's people wanted Zelensky to make an announcement that Ukraine would conduct those investigations that Trump had asked for during that call with Zelensky. Now, Sondland, in a text, he wrote, quote, I think POTUS really wants the deliverable. He adds that it would be good to get a draft of the statement from Yermak in advance to, quote, avoid misunderstandings. So, okay, Trump and Zelensky had this call. Zelensky's like, oh, sure, whatever you want. Yes, we will look into the corruption, which, of course, Donald Trump's too stupid So he's like, let's investigate Biden. Instead of saying, let's investigate corruption, as the aides have been trying to say, and basically send that coded message so that they're not outright saying, investigate my political opponent. Again, Donald Trump's too stupid to actually figure that out. And so one of the things that they said they wanted the Ukrainians to do is to draw up this announcement that they were going to do, announce these investigations ahead of time and show it to Donald Trump's team. Now, the next day, Yermak says it would be possible to make the declaration, that it would make more sense, but that it would make more sense to do it, quote, after we receive a confirmation of date for Zelensky's White House visit. Hey, man, look, we'll do this, but you got to promise us. You got to give us a date for when we're going to come to Washington. Clear quid pro quo. Once we have a date, Yermak said, he'll call for a press briefing in which he'll announce, quote, among other things, Burisma and election meddling and investigations. So that's in August. So none of that mentioned the military aid. That doesn't come until September, where we have this text. Are we saying now, and this is Bill Taylor, right, asking Volker and Sondland on September 1st, quote, are we now saying that security assistance in White House meeting are conditioned on investigations? Sondland simply replied to this by saying, quote, call me. Don't do this in texts. Don't just say that. No, because we know that's illegal. Call me because there's a paper trail. If you text me, these texts could come out, which they have. Volker released these texts. And so now we have that paper trail. Now we have proof of quid pro quo. But you can tell that Sondland's like, oh, I knew that what I was doing was wrong. Hide it. Call me. Like, shut up. Don't put this in text. Now, on the 9th, Taylor also drops this. He says, quote, as I said on the phone, and this is an allusion to the phone calls that they've had. And so it kind of gives you insight into their phone discussions, what they didn't put in texts. Quote, I think it's crazy to withhold security assistance for help with a political campaign. There it is. Boom. Quid pro quo. Right there. They had this conversation. This is withholding the security, the nearly $400 million to Ukraine for help with the political campaign. Ladies and gentlemen, we got them. It's right there in the text. Now, look at this response. And this is the greatest cover your ass talking point response. Sondland, nearly 5 hours later, after that first text from Taylor. Quote, Bill, I believe you are incorrect about President Trump's intentions. The president has been crystal clear. No quid pro quos of any kind. The president is trying to evaluate whether Ukraine is truly going to adopt the transparency and reforms that President Zelensky promised during his campaign. I suggest we stop the back and forth by text. If you still have concerns, I recommend you give Lisa Kenna or S a call to discuss them directly. Shut up. Call me if you have any issues. By the way, no quid pro quo, no obstruction, no collusion. I almost expected him to say that. That is clear quid pro quo. The administration held aid to Ukraine, and these State Department officials knew it, and dangled a meeting between Zelensky and Trump for 100% partisan political purposes. It's so incredibly clear. Right there. Now, Brookings Institution fellow Scott Anderson, after reading these texts, said this: these Kurt Volker text messages are filled to the brim with quid pro quo. I never expected anything this explicit in writing It's truly astonishing. And again, it's because you had Bill Taylor, who had some reservations, as well as Kurt Volker, who resigned because of this, coming out and saying, wait a minute. This is not what we signed on for. We know this is 100% illegal. You cannot do this. You cannot pressure a foreign government into doing personal political favors for reelection. You can't do that. It's illegal. And there, the Trump administration, they did it. Like I told you, Trump, and here's the thing. These guys were using that corruption, right? Isn't it funny how corruption, when it comes to Ukraine, never actually involved any Ukrainians? When they say, oh, there's so much corruption in Ukraine. Really? By who? By Ukrainian? No, never. No Ukrainians were mentioned. All it had to do with was Joe Biden. There it is, man. Now, Trump, again, too stupid to cover it up. He's never been smart at all. And now, there is one genius move that he has done, though. And that is enlisting the State Department, who worked with his personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, to set up this whole thing. But it's not just those two. You have other people involved as well. Again, members of the State Department, the Department of Justice, even the Vice President is now involved and implicated in this. So now he's got everyone all connected, all in an effort to try to dig up dirt on Joe Biden. This is quid pro quo. Purely political, purely partisan. And if you do not see it, you're blind to it. The president is a criminal. And it's very, very clear that he must be, for his criminality, removed from office. Okay. All right, more. Now let's go to Mike Pence.
Mike Pounds.
All right. Here we go. Since the whistleblower complaint was made public, as well as the memo, Pence has been defending Donald Trump and his actions. He clearly comes out and says, well, no quid pro quo, right? No, president hasn't done anything wrong. We haven't done anything wrong. Nothing but a media witch hunt. So he's been echoing Donald Trump essentially exactly. But we've learned several days ago, according to a report from the Washington Post, that Pence is doing so because he apparently had a role in this Ukraine meeting and phone call. So now Trump had told Pence, and this is where it starts, to skip the inauguration of Volodymyr Zelensky. So now that was back in May, right after Zelensky had won election. Instead, Pence was directed to go to a Trump campaign event in Florida, and then later on a trip to Canada. So now this was at a time when Ukraine's new leader was seeking recognition and support from the United States, according to officials. Now, so look, that doesn't sound like too big of a deal, right? But then you have to look into the context afterwards, right? So now Trump apparently back in May already had this on his mind. Like, oh, we've got Ukraine. There's this ridiculous conspiracy theory going around about CrowdStrike and about Hunter Biden and doing illegal stuff. And look, was it shady that what Hunter Biden was doing? Absolutely. Getting paid $50,000 a month when he knows nothing about Ukrainian gas? Yeah, okay. Personal corruption. I'm sorry, not personal, systemic corruption, right? So big problem, right? But nothing illegal, and unfortunately that's the nature of systemic corruption, is that it has been unfortunately legalized in this country. So now there's that, right? But you also look into the context, right? So you have Rudy Giuliani, members of the State Department. You have texts, right? According to texts, had been pressuring Zelensky to come out and announce an investigation into Burisma and CrowdStrike. So you don't go to the inauguration. It sends a little bit of a message. What message does that send? Well, we're not really going to support you. We're not sure if we're going to support you unless you come out and do the things that we want, which will end up helping me politically. Quid pro quo. Very clear. Okay. Now, months later, the president had also used Pence to tell Zelensky that the U.S. aid was being withheld. So this is after July 25th, right? While demanding that more aggressive action on so-called corruption. Officials said at the time, following Trump's July 25th phone call with Zelensky, that the Ukrainians had probably gotten the message. They understood that corruption, since it didn't mention any Ukrainians that were corrupt, to include the investigation of former Vice President Joe Biden and his son. Okay, so now, of course, Donald Trump plainly said that in the July 25th call that, yes, we want you to look into Joe Biden. Now, in the text messages that were recently released, they reference corruption as Burisma or what happened in 2016, essentially the same thing. Okay, so now we find out that one of Pence's top advisors had been involved on the July 25th call. So the fact that he was involved in that call means that he would have the transcript for that call. He would have access to the transcript. Furthermore, with Pence then going to visit Zelensky, before his visit, he would have to have that transcript. In fact, however, Pence's aides kept saying, oh no, he had no knowledge of the transcript, no knowledge of the whistleblower complaint, nothing like that. Look, he doesn't know anything about this. Really? Okay. In fact, officials close to Pence contend that he traveled to Warsaw for a meeting with Zelensky on September 1st, probably without having read or at least fully registered the transcript of Trump's July 25th call with the leader of Ukraine. However, White House officials said that Pence probably would have received the detailed notes of the president's call in his briefing book on July 26th. The 5-page document should have also been part of the briefing materials he took with him to Warsaw to prepare for the meeting with Zelensky. So Pence's aides were saying, "Oh, well, he didn't actually have this. He didn't have this transcript. He didn't prepare at all for this meeting." Well, does anybody believe that? No, and it actually contradicts other statements from other officials. He was prepared. He knew it. Other officials said, yes, he knew. Of course, that's why the meeting was such a great success. And we end up passing the military aid because they were going to go after corruption. So nobody's got their story straight here. Now, in the meeting with Zelensky, by the way, so that happened. He went to Warsaw September 1st. And so he's talking to him. And in that meeting, Pence had conveyed that hundreds of millions of dollars in U.S. aid was not going to be released amid concerns of the country's lagging efforts to combat their corruption, right? He also emphasized Trump's frustration that he thought the EU was not doing a sufficient job in helping to provide aid. So, of course, all that stuff was mentioned by Donald Trump in the call to Zelensky. So, of course, he read it. Of course, he read it. Now, he was saying, if you want that aid, you need to do something about Joe Biden and CrowdStrike. Again, no Ukrainian names mentioned. No mention of any sort of internal corruption on behalf of the Ukrainian people or Ukrainian politicians. No. The only name in the memo, Joe Biden. Pence has said, by the way, that he did not mention Biden during his meeting. He said, we discussed America's support for Ukraine in the upcoming decision the president will make on his latest tranche of financial support in great detail. But as President Trump had me make clear, we have great concerns about issues of corruption. Again, going back to the text, because look, Mike Pence is a little bit smarter than Donald Trump, at least. He knows I actually can't say Joe Biden do an investigation on my political opponent. I'm not like Donald Trump who just blurts it out. I have to say corruption, which again is code for Joe Biden. And so it can't get any clearer. He absolutely knew what he was doing. And so now Donald Trump, by the way, interestingly enough, then throws uh, Mike Pence under the bus. The president told reporters, quote, I think you should ask for VP Pence's conversation because he had a couple of conversations too. They're all perfect. Now, what's a perfect call? Perfect call is when the official whose money that you were holding up is, kissing your ass, essentially trying to make it so that you will give up the money. That was already, by the way, passed by Congress. So that money should have already been sent to Ukraine. It was specifically held up by the Trump administration. So, uh, it, so here we have again Mike Pence deeply involved. I mean, look, with the aide who listened in, the Pence aide, his receipt of the transcript, which he should have, his lie about that, his own meeting with Zelensky, which he references corruption, not to mention Trump dragging him into this in the first place. No, Mike Pence, deeply involved. If Donald Trump ends up going to impeachment, which seems more and more likely every day, right now we're in an inquiry, but they are getting all of this information through subpoenas, through people who are actually, coming out and doing, whistleblowing. Man, not good. Not good for Trump. Mike Pence, by the way, for his role in this, is likely to go with him. And so this is, by the way, kind of part of Trump's strategy. I know. It's amazing to think that Donald Trump has a strategy about literally anything, but this is how he runs things. He gets everyone else involved in his corruption. That way, he knows he's smart enough to know that, hey, man, look, if everybody's involved in the corruption, what do you think you're going to take down every one of us? If I go down, I'm taking you guys down with me. And it makes it more likely that I'm going to have people that are going out to defend me. And that's what this is. Again, people who are in the State Department, the Department of Justice, William Barr, his personal lawyer, the vice president, now involved in this scandal. And it's only just begun. Who knows how far this goes and how many people are actually involved? Well, I have a feeling that soon we're going to have to find out. And it's going to get a lot worse for the president and his closest allies. Okay. Anyway, what I'm going to do, I'm take a break, read some comments, super chats if there are any, and all that stuff. Then we'll get to the AOC town hall. So that should be an interesting story. All right, guys. Thank you. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. Please like and share the stream. We'll see you in a bit.
Mike Pounds.
Welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here, TOT Nation. Jeff Walder here with you. Okay, so a couple of fun comments here. Sarchek says there's a lot of, there are text messages that prove this. Trump is toast. Do not be deceived by Republicans stonewalling. Trump is guilty of sin. Oh, and believe me, they are, they're doing a lot of stonewalling. Yeah. So, there's a story. Kevin McCarthy, who's the leader of the Republicans in the House, he's like, "Oh, Nancy, you actually can't do impeachment unless you come to us, where we can help set the rules." No deal. Not gonna happen. Not going to happen. Absolutely. That's not how it works. So it's interesting. And then we have David E. says, "I appreciate your taking the madness we call modern governance." Thank you, but the thing is, it's not even modern governance. It's broken, 100% broken, and so like it's a complete and utter disaster. And then of course, some people mentioned that if Pence gets impeached, here we have President Nancy Pelosi. Yikes. Yikes. But hey, better than Donald Trump at least. So, okay. Anyway, thank you for your comments. Please like and share the stream. And let's move forward. Let's talk AOC. By the way,
Mike Pounds.
I got to get it out of my system. Okay. All right. Moving on. So yesterday, a viral video came out of a town hall with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She's a representative from New York. And during this town hall, there was a woman who made a fascinating suggestion on how to stave off climate change. Let's take a look.
We're not going to be here for much long because of the climate crisis. We only have a few months left. I love that you support the Green Deal, but it's not getting rid of fossil fuel is not going to solve the problem fast enough. A Swedish professor saying, we can eat dead people, but that's not fast enough. So I think your next campaign slogan has to be this: we got to start eating babies. We don't have enough time. There's too much CO2. All of you, you're a pollutant. Too much CO2. We have to start now, please. You are so great. I'm so happy that you're really supporting the Green Deal, but it's not enough. Even if we would bomb Russia, we still have too many people, too much pollution. So we have to get rid of the babies. That's a big problem. Just stopping having babies is not enough. We need to eat the babies, and this is very serious. Please give a response.
Thank you. No, thank you.
What? Whoa. Okay. Eat the babies. Okay. Complete and utter insanity. Let me just point out that nobody literally believes that we should eat the babies. Okay. So let me just point that out, right? And also point out, as you'll find out later in the story, not even this woman actually believes in that. Boy. Okay, so now that's crazy. We've all established the absolute insanity in that suggestion. So let's look at how AOC responds to this.
So I think, so one of the things that's very important to us is that we need to treat the climate crisis with the urgency that it does present. Luckily, we have more than a few months. We do need to hit net zero in several years. But I think we all need to understand that there are a lot of solutions that we have. and that we can pursue, and that if we act in a positive way, there's space for hope. We are never beyond hope. Okay.
All right. So look, how do you respond in that situation, right? No, she responded with, "Hey, look, that nothing about like eating babies. Like we don't need to do that. In fact, it wouldn't help at all. Um, no, you know, we can make a positive impact. There's always hope, etc. Right? And so now, like I said, she handles this with poise and compassion, right? So now, afterwards, she tweets this out. She says, "Hey everyone, we had a fabulous town hall tonight, and I'll be highlighting some moments from it. At one point, and she addresses this, I was concerned that there was a woman in crisis, and we want to make sure to treat the situation compassionately." Okay. She said, "Let's not mock or make a spectacle, and let's work on Medicare for all." So now, she also added, "The person may have been suffering from a mental condition, and it's not okay that the right wing is mocking her and potentially make her condition or crisis worse. Be a decent human being and knock it off." So you can see, again, AOC being a genuine, decent human being and saying, look, this person, don't make fun of her. Like, yeah, of course her ideas are, crazy, but don't make fun of her. She may be mentally ill, and we have to react with compassion, right? So now the reference to the right wing, of course, is that right after this came out, they had a field day with it. And they said, look at the deranged AOC supporters. They're crazy. They're calling to eat babies. Even Tucker Carlson ran a segment on it. In this segment, he said, if someone said to you, we need to eat the babies, wouldn't your first response be, what? No, of course not. That's the one thing AOC didn't say. Pretty revealing. No, what's pretty revealing is that this was a setup from the beginning. This woman, not mentally ill, she was actually a paid troll, planted there by a right-wing group. Now, this is according to information that was recently revealed by Gizmodo. LaRouche PAC, a far-right group that supports Donald Trump, has taken credit for this plan. They said, quote, "It was us," in response to a question whether the woman was serious. And they said, "Malthusianism isn't new. Jonathan Swift knew that sometimes only satire works." So this group, this right-wing Donald Trump connected PAC, says, of course, yeah, we planted that person. And then, of course, right-wing media does what right-wing media does, and they jump all over it. And they say, oh, look at how insane these progressives are. And look at the people that follow AOC. They want to eat the babies. And LaRouche PAC, of course, like I said, is like, nailed it. Complete, like mission complete, mission successful. So now the connection of the stunt to LaRouche was first noted by London-based Matthew Sweet. Now he's the author of the book Operation Chaos, which sounds about like what this was. Now that book actually looks at conspiracy theorists of the late 1960s, including Lyndon LaRouche Jr., the late co-founder of the LaRouche PAC. So LaRouche was best known for having insane anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. For example, did you know the Jews fund the KKK? No, because that's insane. Well, exactly. It's insane. It's not true at all. But this is what they do. They come up with bonkers conspiracy theories and then, of course, use it against other people. In this case, they use it against the environmental movement. And so, look, let me be clear. Population is not a driver of climate change. You know why? Because 71% of all corporations, 71% of all the emissions are emitted by around 100 corporations. 71% of the emissions. It is corporate America that is driving this crisis, not people having children. Okay, so the whole population control thing, complete myth, and it actually has a basis in anti-Semitism and racism, which, coming from this group, Not exactly surprising, right? No actual leftist person believes in population control, but this is what the right wing does, right? They plant crazy people or people that appear to be crazy in town halls as supporters, and then they do that to make sure that the entire rest of the group looks crazy. In the video, you saw it. Everyone was very visibly uncomfortable, and AOC, being a nice person that she was like, "Hey, hey, whoa, let's kind of redirect her, right? Because I don't know if this person's mentally ill. In fact, she's got her own explanation. I'm going to read that as well. Um, she said, let's see, this when it was revealed that this person was a Trump plant, she said, "quote Turns out the woman yelling was a Trump supporter. Doesn't rule out potential mental illness. Doctors do that, but good to know they were not in crisis. Earlier this year, I was stalked and very nearly hurt by a disturbed person. I don't take chances and immediately try to de escalate." No, she's a good person. So, look, um, the terrible people are the ones who try to go out and smear good people like that. Like, if you have a disagreement on what we should do about climate change, the steps that we should take, okay, look, that's one thing, right? And I think that we should have a very strong, very bold approach. Green New Deal. It's already a piece of legislation put forward by Senator Bernie Sanders. I think that's the only way that we need to go. Others maybe have some more technocratic types of solutions. Okay. It's a conversation that we could have. Okay. But if you're here arguing that climate change is not happening, you're either an idiot or you're paid. Which in this case, this woman obviously paid, right? They know they're wrong. They know they don't have the facts on their side, which is why they do insane stunts. Now, I just realized too, and I just figured out why every Republican, right, when it comes to not every, but most of these conservatives, right, they'll look at somebody like Greta Thunberg, right, the 16-year-old activist from Sweden, who all she's doing is saying, "This is what the science is. You should listen to the scientists. Here's what they're saying. Do something about it, so that I don't have to, so that I can go back to being a kid." Well, the reason that these Republicans always attack her is being, "Oh, you must be a paid plant. You're Al Gore, George Soros. You're being funded by them to say these things, right, about climate change." The reason they do that is pure projection. It's because they're literally hiring people and sending them off to do stuff like this. That's what this is. And now there's another insane thing, right? Notice how she said that there was you can bomb Russia all you want. Wait a minute. What? Wait. What do you have to do with bombing Russia? What is this? Nothing. Nobody mentioned anything about bombing. In fact, AOC would be the most against bombing another country. A complete and utter insanity. But the reason that she brings this up, I think, is because LaRouche, that the LaRouche PAC, is not only a pro-Trump group, but it's a pro-Vladimir Putin group, which I think that's pretty interesting. Now, Putin and Trump, of course, both love fossil fuels. They both deny climate change because I think it's in their financial interests to deny climate change. Now, of course, Donald Trump's a very stupid person. So not only is it, climate change denial help him and political donations, but he's just too stupid to actually understand the real science behind it. So he's like, I don't know, I'm getting paid to, say bad things about climate change. And I don't believe it anyway because I'm too stupid. Okay, well, there you go. But this stunt, by the way, shows that deniers, at the end of the day, are actually incredibly desperate to discredit actual policy positions and politicians that wish to protect humanity from destruction, from climate breakdown and destruction of society. Earth's going to be here for a very, very long time, a few billion more years. You realize the stakes of what could really happen. Well, who are the ones that really sound? Let's do one more story. All right. Let's go to Biden. So the fundraising numbers have been released for the third quarter for most candidates, and Bernie Sanders has been shown that he has crushed the opposition. So Sanders hauled in a record $25.3 million from small donors, with the average of about $18 a piece. Now, we know this. I've reported on this already. So now that involves no corporate money, over 1.4 million individual donors, many of them recurring donors. That is the largest amount of fundraising this cycle so far. Now, Elizabeth Warren also released her numbers. She got roughly about $24.6 million, also from small non-corporate donors. Now, let's go to Biden. Biden only brought in $15.2 million. Womp womp. Okay. So now, he announced, ironically, at a swanky fundraiser in Palo Alto, his fundraising numbers, by the way, were tickets sold for about $1,500 to $2,800. That's the maximum amount. He told his donors at this event that the U.S. doesn't need some, quote, radical socialist kind of answer to inequality. Quote, you've just got to make capitalism work like it's supposed to work. We've got to save capitalism from this guy. Referring, of course, to Donald Trump. Oh, yes, you've got to make capitalism work like it's supposed to. No, it actually is working like it's supposed to. Massive wealth and income inequality, the rich getting richer, poor getting poorer, people being exploited for their labor. Now, I would say it's working as intended. So that's what happens when you have unregulated crony capitalism. You have the crony capitalists that go and buy the government and then rig the rules in their favor. Sounds like it's working perfectly, right? But they got to say that, right? Oh no, we just got to get capitalism working, which means no fundamental change to the system. Again, he told his donors, no fundamental change. I'm not going to change anything if I get into office. All right, well, very, very clear, right? So now what's funny is that so-called radical socialism, right, just completely decimated donations from Biden's wealthy donors. Hilarious. So these high-dollar fundraisers, by the way, have been with billionaires from billionaire real estate tycoons, insurance CEOs, natural gas executives. So that just shows who he's been getting his money from. Not only that, is that a huge problem in the fact that corporate interests are, funding him 100%, but also for him personally. You see, there's only so many high-dollar donors. When you run out of those, when they max out their contributions, and they usually do the first time, like the first time they contribute, they give the maximum amount of donations. Now, look, if it's in the beginning of the race, and you get all those high-dollar donors maxing out, well, that ends up being a lot of money. But then you have no repeat donors. The average donation to Joe Biden is about $44. Compare that to the average donation to Bernie Sanders, $18, right? So now Sanders gets most of his donations from regular people. These are recurring donations, and they don't actually max out. They're very unlikely to max out. And the majority of people who give to Bernie Sanders are teachers, Amazon workers, and workers for Walmart. These are people, by the way, especially in the case of Amazon, that were literally helped out by the actions of Bernie Sanders. Why? He pressured Amazon to raise their wages, and Amazon did. So he supported the workers, and now the workers are supporting him and saying, thank you, Bernie, for raising our wages. Now you can do that for the rest of the country. We're going to support you. And so there's Bernie Sanders. And the difference between him and Biden is enormous. And Biden, by the way, big trouble, right? We know it. I mean, he knows it. He's starting to fall in swing states. He's not getting a lot of fundraising, as you can see from these numbers. He constantly gaffes, as usual, but we expect that from Joe Biden. But more importantly, like I said, he's losing a lot of people, whereas Sanders and Warren are gaining a lot of people, especially Warren. And let's be honest about that. Warren has been seeing a gigantic increase in support. But nonetheless, Sanders still outraised her. Not bad. Okay, so now let me give you some responses here from fellow progressives. Alex Koch, senior investigative reporter and editor, said this, quote, when you rely on a small number of wealthy donors who max out at $2,800, your pool is going to dry up. And that appears to have what happened. Sanders relies on over 1 million, actually 1.4 million, mostly small donors, most of them who can keep donating. Koch also added, if your ideas are actually popular, like Medicare for All, for example, you can raise lots of money without relying on lobbyist fundraisers. Note to all the other establishment candidates, you actually have to have popular ideas. And I know a lot of them at first were like, well, yeah, we're going to not take corporate donations. And then immediately, because there wasn't enough money, because their ideas are not popular, no longer were able to sustain that. And then started going and getting money from corporate donors. Now, Jacobin magazine said this, imagine spending all your time clinking glasses with billionaire donors, reassuring them that nothing needs to change, and still getting outraised by a small dollar only socialist. I love that comment. And again, Biden did say nothing's going to fundamentally change for the wealthy. Well, there you go. No wonder he's getting very little grassroots support. I don't know very many people who actually are in favor of Joe Biden. I know one personally, and we'll just leave it at that. And look, there's a reason that Biden doesn't have any grassroots support. It's because he doesn't represent the people; he represents the donors. And you can't, in this new era, you really can't win an election or get a lot of support if you don't have that grassroots. Okay. Okay. So that's it. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for going around the nation. Thank you for going around the nation with me today. Please like and share the stream. Very important that you also please like and share the clips. Share them everywhere you can. Also consider becoming a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation or channel member to support independent progressive media. Thank you guys. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, guys. You have a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday.